guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is an entitled People Story. I recently had the exciting opportunity to purchase my dream home after several years of saving up for it. The house had been on the market for quite some time, about 6 to 8 months, before I finally got the chance to snatch it up. Before moving in, I wanted to have some work done to ensure that everything was perfect for my arrival. One morning, I received a call from my contractor asking me to move the cars in the driveway. However, I was caught off guard since I had not yet moved in. As soon as I arrived, I noticed that the people living on the east side of my property were walking towards the cars. After introducing myself, I learned that they had been parking there for a few months with permission from the previous owner. I informed them that I was the new owner and politely asked them to move their cars since they could no longer park there. They were not too pleased about it, and we went back and forth. However, I tried to be a good neighbor and show some goodwill, so I agreed to let them park there for a few more weeks until I moved in. The agreement was that they would move their cars by 6 a.m. every morning. The rest of the week went by smoothly, and I even scheduled a walkthrough with my contractor on Saturday. But when I arrived, 4 cars were parked in the driveway, leaving no room for me to park. Since the only available street parking was 2 blocks away, I immediately called them and reminded them of our agreement to move their cars. After waiting for 20 minutes, they finally came out and moved their cars. They claimed they had misunderstood the agreement and thought it only referred to weekdays and not weekends. I corrected them and hoped that was the end of it. On Sunday morning, I needed to move some furniture to the garage and noticed that once again, there were cars parked in the driveway. I called them, but they didn't answer, so I texted them and warned them that I would have to tow their cars if they weren't moved soon. Still no answer, so I called a tow company. 45 minutes later, 2 tow trucks arrived, hooked up to the cars, and started to tow them away. Suddenly, the neighbors appeared out of nowhere, frantically trying to stop their cars from being towed. Unfortunately, they ended up paying over $300 to have their cars released from the tow trucks. After that incident, I decided to put in a driveway gate to prevent any further misunderstandings. My contractor knew someone who could install the gate, and I informed my neighbors that they could no longer use my driveway. But on Wednesday, the gate installer called me to inform me that there were cars parked in the driveway again. I called my neighbors and warned them that tow trucks were on the way, and they eventually moved their cars. The gate was installed, and I picked up the opener later that evening. But when I arrived at the house, the neighbor's husband came out to confront me. I was reluctant to engage with him, so I called the police to deal with the situation legally. On Saturday, I went to the house to accept an outdoor furniture delivery and check on things when I noticed a towel and a small kid's flotation device beside the pool. At first, I thought I must have overlooked them before and tossed them in the trash. But later that night, around 7 p.m., my daughter and I returned to the house after grabbing some dinner, and we discovered that the neighbors were using my pool and furniture without my permission. I was extremely upset and began to raise my voice, which prompted them to tell their children to go inside. However, the children ran to a corner of our fence and walked right through it. Upon closer inspection, I noticed that they had cut out a section of the privacy fence so that it could be removed, allowing them easy access to my property. They had been using my pool and furniture for who knows how long without my knowledge or permission. Once again, I called the police to file a complaint, and they arrested the father for trespassing, DPP, disorderly persons offense, and an outstanding warrant. Additionally, the oldest son, a 20-year-old man, was also arrested for an outstanding warrant. It was a shocking and disturbing situation, and I felt violated that my privacy had been so blatantly disregarded. To make matters worse, the neighbors had destroyed the posts, runners, and pickets of the fence by removing and reinstalling the panel. I had to replace the entire fence with a new one, which cost a total of $3,800. Fortunately, I was able to take legal action and won the case in small claims court. However, my troubles with the neighbors were far from over. The following Monday, around 5 a.m., I noticed that their cars were parked in the street where there's no street parking. I made a phone call, and within a short time, tow trucks arrived to remove the cars. They were gone when I left for work at 7 a.m. Despite all of the challenges, I remained determined to make my dream home a reality. It was frustrating to have such difficult neighbors, but I tried to stay positive and focused on the future. In the end, their house went up for rent, and they moved out. The next story is titled Smoking Breaks. A bit of backstory. I am a forklift driver in a logistics team at a factory for car parts. All in all, over 3 shifts there are 24 forklift drivers in line feed plus 4 management for the morning shift and 3 general logistics workers, for inbound and outbound deliveries, so unloading and loading, for morning and day shift. Of those 31 members of the logistics team, 28 are smokers, including myself. Especially in line feed it can be extremely stressful, if several lines run dry of a component at the same time, which happens a lot due to the codependency on parts. Parts go from line A to B to C to quality control to shipping. So, we take smoke breaks when we need it and there is time for that. A general rule at my work is, if you can smoke, you have time, and everyone is following that rule. No one goes smoking if the lines are empty or during general busy hours. And we got really efficient at that. No one in the team is smoking for more than maybe 2 or 3 minutes at a time. Literally just rush to the smoking area and inhale your dose of nicotine, then back to work. Last week, a factory-wide HR statement prohibited smoking, except in the designated break times, due to some of the lines repeatedly stopping cause workers on the lines didn't bother to ask for someone to cover their machine during their smoke break. Our had enough and the entire factory was from there on out prohibited to smoke, except during the designated breaks. So why am I mentioning that? Of course, because of the stressful nature of that job and HR demanding that it is simply not possible to have the entire factory at once having a break. So, the foreman of every line designates the breaks, usually 2 times 15 minutes, but all lines at different times. The lines that are, not the logistics team. The logistics team, because of this rule, can't have the break at a designated time and we all usually take our breaks with the associated line. We didn't like it, that we get punished for the mistakes of others and our manager made this also clear to our. But in our contract is stated that we individually take our breaks, as long as the break starts no less than 2 hours after shift begin and ends no less than 45 minutes before shift end. Cue the malicious compliance. Every single one of us line feed workers decided, after our manager being really fed up with this rule as well, yes, also a smoker with no designated break, to take our breaks in 10 minutes increments after 2 hours, 4 hours and the final one after 6 hours. To cut things short, it was perhaps the shortest rule in our team that existed. Only about a week and we got a mail from HR that workers of the logistics team don't fall under this rule and can go on smoke breaks, provided the lines are not standing and a total time of 30 minutes per shift is not exceeded. Maybe petty and a bit of a-holery, but in my opinion it was worth it. The next story is entitled Mom Tries to Force Me to Leave the Park because she is convinced my little sister is actually my daughter. There's a 10.5-year age gap between me and my little sister. When I was a teen, I often used to take her to the local park to give my mum a break or give her time to get some housework done etc. At the time this story happened, I was 15. It was Wimbledon season, so my mum asked me to take my sister to the park for a few hours so she could watch it in peace. She gave me some money so we could get some fish and chips in town and some ice cream at the park. There was usually an ice cream van there. So, we got some fish and chips, went to the beach for a bit to buy mum extra time, and then we headed to the park. As we approached the park gate, this entitled mom who was dragging along her child glared at me. Entitled Mom, you should be ashamed. I looked around, but there was nobody else she could have been talking to. Dumbfounded, I blankly pointed to myself, as if to affirm she was talking to me. Entitled Mom, girls these days are such sluts, opening their legs to anyone who asks. Who got you knocked up? Or let me guess, you don't know. I stared blankly at her for a minute. Me. This is my little sister. Entitled Mom rolled her eyes and leered at me. Entitled Mom. Yeah, we had little sisters in my day too. I just said, okay, bye, and walked away because I was uncomfortable with conflict and just wanted out of that situation. Entitled Mom. Don't you dare go into the park. You'll spread your filthy diseases all over the park. I don't want my son catching your diseases. I ignored her and rushed into the park. Surely, she'd leave me alone when I was surrounded by other kids and parents, right? Wrong. Entitled Mom followed me around the park, demanding that I leave. The more I ignored her, the madder she got, and she kept repeating over and over, get out, you're not allowed here. At this point, a few parents noticed. One mum, let's call her FM, friend Mum, who my mum and I often chatted with, immediately stood and rushed over just as entitled Mom grabbed my arm and yanked at me. FM. Why are you grabbing a child? Let her go. Who are you? Entitled Mom. Mind your ducking business. FM. Let her go or I'm calling the police. Entitled Mom let me go but turned her anger towards FM, shouting that she was just making the park safe for her child, and I shouldn't be here because I might spread some nasty disease all over the place. She never specified what disease. I'm guessing she meant an STI or something. More parents started coming over to see what was going on. Seeing she was outnumbered, entitled Mom eventually left, dragging her child behind her, screaming obscenities at us as she slinked away. FM gave us a lift home to make sure we were safe. When I told my mum what happened, she was furious. She packed us into the car and drove us around town to look for the woman, but we didn't spot her. Thankfully, I never saw the woman again. The next story is titled So 3 Kids and a Scooter Came into the Store. Let's set the scene really quick. I'm a supervisor at one of the main grocery stores in Australia. I'm currently filling in a shift at another nearby store. At the time I was manning the self-serve checkouts and I noticed 3 kids come in by themselves, no parent, one pushing a scooter. Now these kids were about 10 to 15 years old probably. They looked like your typical troublemaking kids you see running around everywhere, although they did comply with instructions when I told them they couldn't ride their scooter in the store. One of them grabbed a Kit Kat and purchased that and started to eat it while the others grabbed a 24-pack of soft drink cans. The 2 with the soft drink proceeded to come through self-serve and start to put money into the machine, but then they noticed they were short. While they are discussing urgently about why they were short and did the Kit Kat guy spend their money, one realized he had lost a $5 note. I was feeling in a good mood and spontaneously decided to cover the $3 for them. They were polite and said thanks. But the reason I'm writing this is for what happened next. One of the kids found their $5 they dropped on the floor outside the store, came back and offered it to me, which I refused and said they could keep it. They then asked that I take it and if any other customers were a few dollars short I use it to cover the extra, as their way of paying it forward. I accepted, put the money in our loose change tin and sort of wished their parents were around so I could tell them they had raised some awesome kids. The next story is titled I Thought She Was Checking In for a One-Night Stand. Boy was I glad to be wrong. So, this happened a while ago, before worldwide quarantine became a thing, but I hadn't reached the karma min to post it till recently. Enjoy. I'd been working as a front desk agent for about a week. It's my first time working at a hotel, so I'm still learning the ropes even though I'd previously worked as a check-in agent for a cruise line. I'm working the afternoon shift and things have been pretty slow, couple of check-ins here and there and that's about it. It's about 7 p.m. when this lady, we'll call her Libby, comes in and, after talking things out at the valet, makes her way over to me. We exchange greetings, and she tells me she would like to reserve a room but only for a couple of hours. Obviously, we're not a motel, so I let her know the minimum of time she could reserve a room for would be a full night. After asking what the price would be, $240, which is way too much for the kind of hotel I work at, BTW, she agrees and hands me her credit card. This is where things get weird. As soon as I ask her for ID to make the reservation, Libby backtracks and says that she doesn't want her name anywhere on the reservation and would like to make it under the name of the guy who would be joining her later, instead. I pause for a moment, and after asking her again if she was planning on using the room as well, I tell her that I at least need to put her name into the accompanying list for the room. I reassure her that only the employees would be able to see said list and that no, the guy she was planning to meet wouldn't see it. I would like to make it very clear that throughout this whole interaction Libby has been super composed, kind, and understanding. At this point, however, I'm just thinking she's here for a one-night stand and doesn't want the dude to know anything about her because she's probably married or something. Which, I can work with sure, but why not just actually get a motel lady? This theory of mine is further solidified when Libby asks me to make a note in the reservation so that, if any point we need to address her by name around the dude, we wouldn't call her by her real name and instead, she gives me a fake name, or so I thought, to address her by. At this point, I'm OBVS bewildered but still trying to be accommodating and trying really hard not to let it show how much I'm trying to figure out what the heck is going on LMAO. We go through the rest of the check-in process, and she even goes as far as showing me a pic of the dude so I'll know who he is when he comes in. I hand her the key and she head to her room. About an hour later, mystery dude walks in. Let's call him Jake. My coworker. who has no clue of anything, ends up checking him in, so I don't really get to see much of Jake. To be honest, at this point I still wasn't giving the whole thing much thought other than, that's a bit weird lol. Not even 30 minutes have passed since Jake went up when Libby comes back down and hands me both keys. They'd both received one each, says, "Thank you," in the most serious yet cordial way, and then walks off. Multiple thoughts went through my mind as this lady was making her way to the valet. That was way too fast even for a quickie. Why the heck did she give me 2 keys? Where's Jake? Libby, please tell me you didn't murder Jake. Security is standing behind me staring Libby down, probably having the same thought process as I am. The supervisor for security usually spends the night hanging out at FD. My coworker and I are whispering with each other, still trying to figure out what the heck happened, because that did not look like a lady who had just had a pleasant romp in the sheets. Cue Jake coming down the stairs and, okay, we can breathe, he's not dead. Now what happened next we couldn't see because we suddenly had an onslaught of distressed passengers, like 30. I wanted to die. So I thought I wouldn't find out what the heck had actually happened between Libby and Jake. But then the worker from the valet came over and boy did he have some tea to spill. Turns out that Libby had gone as far as asking valet guy to park her car in a way that the license plate wouldn't be visible. Why? Because turns out that Jake is Libby's husband. And you might be asking yourself by this point, why has this lady gone through so much trouble to hide anything that might give her identity away from her husband? Well, dear reader, because the alias that Libby gave me just so happened to be the name of the girl Jake was cheating on her with. This woman, somehow, got her cheating ass husband to believe that his girlfriend had booked them a sweet night at the hotel, only for him to show up and find his wife sitting on the bed instead. This BAMF of a woman came back downstairs after probably massacrating the heck out of this idiotic boy with not a hair out of place, and calmly had the valet bring both of their cars back, and then patiently waited for Jake Shake to get his sorry ass back to the lobby so that she could extend her hand and demand their house keys from him. She then got into her car and just drove away. The only thing that would have made this even better was if Jake Shake's girlfriend had also been there to tear into him as well. I like to think she had a part to play in this whole thing, since how else would Libby have managed to trick him into getting to the hotel? Point is, this woman is all I aspire to be. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comments.